Hi, Betsy. Nice to see you. Okay, so we've called the meeting to order. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the July call for this month for the Bristol Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. First order of business, as always, will be the review and approval of the previous month's meeting minutes. But before that, for anybody who is on the call, and we actually might have, based on some emails that I've gotten, we might actually have some new people joining in. But as usual, we always start with public forum in case anybody has anything to say and doesn't want to sit through the rest of the business at hand for the board. And then we move into quarterly initiatives, grants, which are two things that are joined tightly at the hip, any other business that we need to cover, and then we adjourn. So can I get from the board a motion to approve the previous month's meeting minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes. Yeah.
And can I get a second, please?
Second.
Great. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Brad. And as always, the link to the meeting minutes are in the cloud share that we maintain for not just the meeting minutes, but also the agendas and all of the documentation and research and other items associated with anything that we've discussed. Those are all available, I believe, through a link from the town's website. I'm going to go check that later tonight and just make sure all the access and all the links to those things are there and up and running. I haven't looked at them in a while, but Betsy had sent me a note earlier mentioning that the only thing that was on the town website was a time, no call-in information. So I want to make sure that all of those things are available. We've also been bumping up the posting date on Front Porch Forum for these by a day. So we've just been getting it out there a little bit in advance, and we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to hope to post the notification of the meetings on Tuesdays in advance, and also obviously try to post it, pardon me, when I can on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. I'll try to get in the habit of that. So without further ado, we'll get into the first agenda item of the night. That's our public forum. Do any of the either members of the public who've joined us tonight or any of the board members really, but we'll give kind of first right of refusal to any of our community members here joining us. Does anybody have anything to bring in front of the gang here tonight for discussion?
I'd like to speak.
Yeah, of course, Sally. The floor is yours.
Okay. I just wanted to check in with you all to see what you're up to and stuff, because I've just been kind of pressured into or invited to be the chair for the Addison Bike Pedestrian Council. So I wanted to just tune into what you're doing, because I haven't really been keeping in touch. And I just want to become more informed in what different towns want, and what the council of the whole county can be doing to be coordinating, and helping and tuning into each other. So
now, can you clarify for us, or maybe you just did, is it for Addison the town or Addison the county?
County.
Got it. Okay.
Mainly it's been like it's been called the Middlebury Bike Ped Council, but it's really, now they're calling it Addison County. It's really all towns are invited to be a part of it and come to meetings if they want, or just to say, hey, what can we all put our energy toward that would help us all? What do we want?
Got it. Okay, so that organization we did used to have connections to, but then the communication from them dropped off. We stopped receiving invites and communication and things like that. As far as I think their meetings happened, they might happen on like a quarterly basis or something. I know they were a little bit spread out from, at least initially, from when ours were, and then we just stopped receiving any outreach from that group at all. So we weren't 100% sure what was going on with it. So it's good to hear that it's still active.
Yeah, I think it did quiet down for a while. I didn't go to many of the meetings, but was there some of the time.
Yeah.
And so Laura Sermily, I think, had a lot to do with it for a while, and someone before that had a lot to do with kind of keeping it together, but now she's too busy with other things. So I'm gonna try to pick up the ball and, you know, find out what towns are wanting to do and how we can possibly help each other through local motion or whatever we need,
Okay,
funding, that kind of stuff.
okay, cool. So I'll jump in with a couple things, and then anybody on the group, please feel free to add. This is actually a um, really great subject that Sally's bringing up. Without getting into it too labored of a discussion about the twists and turns that have gotten us to the last few months here, our focus moving forward is going to be on a combination or pairs, I should say, of initiatives and ideas that match nicely with grants that are potentially there to fund them. We were given that advice from the select board that anything that we wanted to bring in front of the group would be much more warmly welcomed if it was attached to a potential grant. And so obviously that comes at a time when Bristol has hired a dedicated grant writer for the town, and who has actually joined us on one or two calls before. I don't know if you've met our grant writer.
No, I haven't.
And fascinating information, not just for our committee, but also in general for anything, any initiative that someone in the town might be interested in. I'm paraphrasing her line, but she said, if you can think it up, there's a grant to fund it. And she gave some examples that were relative to our work and kind of our charter. And they were everything from, we gave an example. She asked a question about like, okay, well, do you have any small projects? And we said, well, from a budget perspective, like what's a small project or a small grant? And she said, oh, $15,000. And we were thinking like, well, that's considering our smallest projects that we've been kicking around are like, okay, well, it'd be cool if there was a new bike rack over here. Like 15 grand is a pretty big amount of money relative to what we would consider a small initiative. And then at the large end, she also noted, and she's forwarded us some communication in the background as well about this, but things like examples of trail expansions and things like that, actual, mountain bike trails. And I would assume it's coming off of towns that have converted rail beds over into bike trails and walking trails and things like that. She said that it's kind of like the low end is actually pretty high, and then the high end is sort of a sky's the limit type of a thing. So it was really cool to hear that relative to a lot of the work that we've at least been talking about. So anyway, just going back to what we're going to be focusing on moving forward, and it's the two agenda items that are next, the combination of initiatives as well as grants. I think most of what we're going to be doing is focused on trying to move the needle on some of the things that the ad hoc committee that came before us had teed up, like traffic calming, things like that, but also reacting and writing letters of support and plans to the select board for things that people have brought to them. Two examples that are recent are a scoping study for a new section of sidewalk that would run on the south side of West Street, going basically from the bank down to the snack bar, the creamy stand. It's the one section in town that kind of stands out as a glaring place where to cross the street there from where there is a sidewalk is very dicey. There is a crosswalk there, and it's actually, in the 10 years that I've been here, it's evolved from being directly across from the gas station into the park, from one parking lot to another, to they've offset it slightly to the corner of Maple. But they've got money for a scoping study so that they can investigate pouring a new sidewalk there, which would make getting to the creamy stand much easier for people coming from the very downtown of Bristol Village. As that's an example. So we wrote a letter of support for that. We've developed we voted on and to approve a plan for an assisted crosswalk at the intersection of North and Spring/Pleasant Street. That's another thing that they've asked us to do. And then we're just kind of in idea generation mode as far as other initiatives that are similarly placed. We're also trying hard, and this might be good for you as far as outreach is concerned. We're trying not to step on the toes of anything that's also going on in parallel. with what we're doing. Like there's other sidewalk scoping studies. There's been this desire, at least since this group has been stood up, to expand and improve the sidewalk on, or really complete the sidewalk that's on Airport Road, going past the rec fields and into Mount Abe. We discussed that 2 meetings ago, and some of the issues that the select board and the other interested parties need to clear before that happens, because there's a little bit of a game of hot potato with who technically not owns, but at least would sort of run lead on that between the rec club, Mount Abe School District, the town. There's a lot of interested and hopefully parallel rather than competing parties there. But what we were told was, we've got some things to sort out as far as whose responsibility it would be to apply for something like a grant to move forward with that. That's a couple specific things. In the broadest sense, when we think about something that group, when it was the Middlebury focus group, had reached out to us with, the Tri-Town bike loop was something that was really interesting to us, especially because at the time it seemed like it was going to cross over something that we had been discussing for a while, which is ingress and egress from the village out to Plank Road and out to all of the great gravel riding and things like that out that way. It sounded like the Tri-Town bike loop might cross over or intersect with some of the areas that we had talked with people for the last 2 years about, helping to at least mark or make it easier to get to. So, there's things like that. Basically we're in this mindset of, I think our charter, the way it reads, or our mission, the way it reads, is very broad. It's meant to just make Bristol as a whole a more inviting place. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but a more inviting place for non-motorized transportation, biking, walking, running, etc., to happen within. So
Great, thanks. Regarding the Tri-Town loop, that is pretty much set now, and
Yep.
there are signs up. You've probably seen that.
Yep.
Well,
Have you
great,
been
thanks.
have you been given any direction on like what the Addison County group is going to be doing or anything like that?
We had a meeting a couple weeks ago with Susan Grasso of Local Motion, who is
Yep.
leaving it, I guess, soon.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if we really have. I'm looking at some of my notes here to see if. One of the things was just to reach out to all the towns and see if we can find out what people are doing. Do they need help? Do they want to hear about grants? What would smaller towns want to hear, from, so that they could begin to think about getting bike parking if they wanted, so it's just somehow we were gonna maybe do some little webinars or something so that we can, or somehow reach out. I don't know how it'll work. It's easier to do it with Bristol, Middlebury, and Virgins. We're more active, but the smaller towns, just seems like it's time to reach out to them. So I think that's our main thing, is reaching out to the smaller towns, seeing if we can, and then in that way, maybe there's even a way to get a grant that would cover more, more towns in a county or something like that for different things.
I think you mentioned and sort of underscored the smaller towns in the organization. I think to that end, like I said, I started off my little diatribe with, Bristol has its own grant writer. So we're obviously not looking to compete with funds or for funds with any of the smaller towns. What I think we would like to do, or at least the first thing off the top of my mind, is things like the Tri-Town bike loop. It's things that touch a number of towns, including ours. How can we better promote the existence of those things through, we maintain a sort of liaison list of contacts at the rec club and at the schools and in various other places that we can help promote things through and maybe get more active and more organized and more kind of consistent with how things are communicated to the community.
I think that's
Um,
great. I like that idea. I need to learn more about that and do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
That's the first thing off the top of my mind is because like we know we have a parking lot of ideas that are grant ready or almost grant ready that we've been discussing over the last year and a half. Most of them are very doable, very achievable. Some of the ones that are at the lower end of the list, simply because they would involve so I think they would involve both an amount of work and an amount of navigating administrative and bureaucratic and state issues. Like
Yeah.
the one that jumps to mind is that it is incredibly dangerous if you want to ride to the falls or to the
Yeah.
only bike shop in town or walk to the falls. It's
Yeah.
dicey to do that. And so people have been like, well, why don't we have a sidewalk that runs from the village, continue the sidewalk from the village out to the road to Lincoln?
I knew you were going there.
So
That's the one that we
that's
need
the
so
one.
badly. Yeah.
So it's again, it's been discussed. We know that, and it's been discussed by multiple people, everyone
Yeah.
from people that live out in Rockydale,
Yeah.
to, you know, just kind of right thinking people who are just like, this is kind of a glaring thing here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I said, I think our big thing is we would love, and everybody else, please jump in. I think we would really love to jump in and see how we can help and promote anything that is multi-town. You know, because, oh, Sally, I mean, sorry, Betsy, you're on mute.
Okay. One thing that a grant might help with, there's a bike path that I'm kind of aware of in New York State that is runs along a railroad right of way. And they've made a point to have roads that cross it have really good signage and stuff like that. You know, so the cars know that they're coming to a bike crossroad. And then at one end, they've got a little shop where you can rent bikes and get water, and I think maybe a few things for emergency repairs and stuff like that. And so I'm thinking when you're trying to figure out how to maybe connect towns, to think about whether a grant could set up a little shop like that, and then you could find somebody who wanted to be the proprietor.
That's interesting. Your note at the front end, your note at the beginning about the intersections is also interesting. That's one of the things that we've discussed off and on, is one of the major sort of bike routes in Bristol and from and through Bristol. To get to it, you have to take Plank Road and cross Burpee, which is a pretty challenging can be a pretty challenging intersection. So I wonder if something like signage could address that issue. It's also been brought up historically that it's like, can we turn that into a four-way stop? That
Right,
didn't.
but also if you have little parking lots at, you know, near these intersections, then you're more likely to draw tourists to the area.
Yes.
You know, because
Yep.
then they can come, they can, and even if they don't have a bike, if it's one that's got a shop, they can rent a bike, and then they're right there in the area looking for a place for dinner.
True.
I think it's a great idea, but I also think that we have so much in Bristol already. Great shops and great places to eat.
Yes, but that's in downtown Bristol.
Yeah.
And Bristol is bigger than that.
Right.
And also, I mean, the other towns adjoining, it's like, maybe you want to do it at the town lines or something, but you know, someplace where you could acquire an acre from a farmer or something like that, and then just make it really, really bike friendly.
That'd be a fun thing for someone who has a home right there already, and they put out a lemonade stand and a this and that. They could do their own thing with their land.
Yeah, well,
You know,
but flush
that kind of
toilets are nice too,
Yeah,
so, you know,
totally.
but if, yes, if there is a house there, then there is, you know, either a well or a something or other, that could, reach out to
Yeah.
a little business.
I had a question. I'm a little behind, but you said that the Tri-Town bike route is already set.
Yes, there are signs that show the way that, at least going out of Bristol, they suggest going out to Hardscrabble. Now then you go up that hill and there is a dangerous turn to make on pavement, but that's what the sign is directing people to, going that way, because going plank can be really dangerous too if you have, yeah, you might maybe thinking of something else, so I don't want to go on saying stuff you don't care about.
I wasn't sure if it was, I know a few years ago it had been discussed to actually create a separate bike path along
Yeah,
the route.
that wasn't working. We did a lot of work on trying to figure that out, and you know, V-Trans and everything, it's just not going to do it. They were willing to, I think, slightly widen Munger Street or something, but there's no striping or anything. The best we could do is just create signs and suggest people go these ways at this point. It's something we'd love to do that at some point, but that's just not gonna cut it. You know, powers that be are not ready for that.
Yeah, if you know, if Bristol could figure out the troublesome area between downtown and the local bike shop and also the river, it would have a really clearly marked route, at least from like the center of each town or wherever the specified trail, or not trail, but route is to each local shop.
Yeah, I agree. That is the most dangerous area we have right there. I've been close to getting crushed by a truck there myself. It's just ridiculous that there isn't more, you know, right by the rock, you know, where the rock sticks out into the road. Huge truck comes barreling down and it doesn't know there's a rock there sticking out right at the edge.
Right.
Another car coming the other way where they can't see because there's a corner. I mean, the truck just before it hit me, but you know, moved out of the way and then cut back so it didn't run over the other car. It's insane. It's insane that is, it's so scary to be on that road.
Sally, oh, sorry.
Well, I just wondered if, in terms of the whole like multiple town and using the Tri-Town route, if it could be a little more connected to each of the three shops. So I think there's only one in Middlebury, right?
Okay, yeah, there's a bike shop there. Yeah, it's really sad that it can't be connected to Cool Motion Sports here. That would be really important to have another bike shop on the loop, on the triangle. Because there's a bike shop in Virgin, so each place has a bike shop, but we don't have access to it, safe access really here in Bristol.
Right.
Yeah, good point. Really good point.
Is there a map for said Tri-Town route?
I think there is a map online. I'm not sure exactly how to get on it. I'm pretty fresh taking over some kind of role here. But I'd say looking at Tri-Town bike loop, I don't know if you'd get that through Middlebury or Addison County Bike Ped. I don't know. I should figure out how to get that map, Tri-Town map.
Can you actually, Sally, can you let us know, do you know if any other towns have formal organizations like Bristol does that you're working with?
I think very few, if any. I think Middlebury kind of had their thing and then they decided to kind of try to make it more of a whole Addison County thing, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if Regents has anything. That's another good question. These are great questions for me to learn from Laura.
Because obviously with all the talk of the Rocky Dale stretch there and the falls and all that, our proximity to Lincoln and a lot of the shared bike routes, especially the gravel routes over the mountain, up over the Bristol Notch and things like that. It'd be interesting to know if anybody formally was doing anything over in Lincoln. I know I don't believe anybody ever told us about who was behind, whether there was an individual organization behind the traffic calming lines that were painted in Lincoln. I don't know if that's just something that was done by a sort of a subset of the town government or what, but I know that they've at least done some interesting things over there. Oh, Jim, what do you got? You're muted.
Check with Meredith McFarland from Recreation Department, because she has a bike unit in her organization, and she probably knows where all the trails are.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her. I'm wondering if Sally, what do you know?
Yeah, I know a little bit. Yeah, the
Okay.
Lincoln advisory lanes, are you talking about when
Yeah.
that they put in?
Yeah.
That was part of a pilot program in Vermont. I think they chose 3 towns in Vermont, and Lincoln said, sure, we'll put stripes on the road and see how it is, and you can, figure out how it worked and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was great, but they also, once it was over, whenever they repaved, they kind of they kind of paved over, and they needed parking alongside of their road. So they use some of that space for parking now, because they were really out of parking space for the church. But they don't, Lincoln right there, they don't really need it. People are going slow. There's a wide road. It was a place to try it out, but
they had also done advisory lanes on one of the north-south roads going out of town towards Ripton, like on the road I think that the town garage was on.
oh, okay.
And we actually went and measured those and took pictures of those and folded that research into our own proposal that for Pine Street. But
those are great.
But they're gone. I believe they're gone.
Well, they have stripes now there. They have stripes, and it even says like bike pointing forward, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, I thought
so
that,
those are still there.
Okay.
They're not advisory lanes, but they are a solid white line with room to ride your bike.
Yes. Yeah.
On both sides of the road.
Yep.
It's great. It's exactly what we need for Pine Street, probably. But
yes, Betsy.
I'm wondering, since I am not a bike rider, when you say you've got advisory lines and stripes and stuff, how many square feet? I mean, how long on the road is the zebra or whatever you're making?
There are different sizes of lanes for different things. The word advisory lane corresponds to a road that's like a 25-mile-an-hour max road, where you have dashed lines on both sides, and there's only one lane for cars, and they take turns. They use the whole road, but if pedestrians are in the side lanes with the dashes, the cars yield to the pedestrian. So then if there are 2 cars coming, one decides to go and then the other goes.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, when I was talking about signage at the intersections, you get a couple of signs before you get to where you can see the intersection, but it's got a zebra where the stripes are maybe 18 inches wide, and the extent of the zebrified area is going to be 15 feet or 20 feet. So it's like, your car comes up toward that and you say, whoa, baby, what is this?
Okay, I see what you're saying. You're talking about, something
I'm
coming.
talking about the
horizontal.
the actual place where the driver has to learn to stop or slow down and, you know, because, and look both ways up and down the bike trail.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Betsy,
I
I
don't
can
know.
forward you,
I
I
don't
can
know
fetch
about
you, I can forward you all the research that was handed to us, and then the research that we did when we were putting together our proposal for this a year and a half ago. It's all online. As Sally was mentioning, the width of the lanes ends up varying from, we found narrowest were 3 feet. A lot of places were doing 5 feet where they had the room to do that in width. This is the width of
Right,
the
well, I
lane.
would, that was not, you know, the question that I had. I mean, I am aware of bike lanes. I've, you know, driven over in Europe and, you know, they know how to do it. But,
I think Betsy's talking about more crosswalks that go across the
right,
lane,
that protect
not
the
side
bikers,
lanes.
that protect the bikers from being hit by cars.
Yeah, you're talking, are you talking about protected bike lanes? Then?
No, I'm not talking lanes at all.
So then,
Zero, not talking about lanes.
I
I'm
think
talking
maybe,
about when a bike trail crosses a highway. Okay, it's sort of like you get signage for a railroad crossing.
yeah,
You know, like you're coming on it and there's going to be flashing lights or whatever. It's like they make sure that cars are aware that they're crossing railroad tracks. So this place that has the really good signage that gets, you know, tourists coming up from New York City and all kinds of places, it has a lot of signage so that parents are not worried that their 8 or 9-year-old kid is going out with his buddies and going to be driving on that bike trail and crossing roads and stuff, you know, because it's just very, very, very friendly to the bikers.
I think that it's pretty much any of that, the bike people have to stop if they're gonna cross a road like that. There's a stop. And yes, there should be some things ahead of time to let a car know that there is a bike lane there, but the bicyclist needs to stop and look and make sure there are no cars and then cross.
Okay, and that's the rule in Vermont.
I think so, but
I
that's
mean, I
just-
would think that would be the
Yeah.
rule if it was a county road or a
Well-
state road. Well, a
Well-
state road anyway, that you couldn't you go messing with impeding traffic because the AAA would get all upset. But there's probably a number of small roads that it might be possible for the town to change the speed limit or, you know, whatever. I mean, that's the sort of thing they've been talking about at Pine Street. So I just want to bring that forward as maybe a way to get the public consciousness more wrapped around biking as a thing.
I think there's usually something like a sign up ahead of time that says bike crossing ahead. That's one of the main things that alerts people.
Right, maybe 2 of them. I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
you know,
I think they probably would want to just do one and it really do it in a, and then have some stripes or something on the road, probably heavy duty stripes. And it's up, again, it's up to the bicyclists to not be driving across that road. They need to really look, and they have a solid stop on their trail.
yeah, and I think that, you know, and to be clear, we don't have these challenges right now because we don't have bike trails.
Yeah, right.
We
That's a good
don't
point.
have, we're not, you know, we don't have anything official that we're trying to, there've been things, like I said, the intersection between Burpee and Plank that have been mentioned before, and it was very much a scorched earth approach. It was like, well, let's turn it into a 4-way stop. That'll actually just, you know, fix this problem of that being a dangerous intersection if we just stop it from being an intersection at all, and turn it into something where people have to stop. Betsy, as far as the the speed limit, that's been discussed, I dare say, ad nauseum on these calls over the last 2 years. We've done what we can to support and forward that conversation with the select board. It's in the select board's hands. And there's a variety of opinions, and in some cases agendas that they're navigating. And so, we're just going to leave the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit thing to them to navigate. They know where we stand on it. We know the challenges, and the voices, and all the opinions. Every opinion's valid that they hear. We're leaving it up to our elected officials to decide the fate of a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. We've discussed it on I would probably say every other meeting for the last 2 years.
Okay.
So Sally, any other questions or anything like that? What do you need from us? And as noted, like what can we do? Because there's a lot that we can do that we're not necessarily doing right now. But we would certainly love to help broaden the awareness of anything that the countywide group is doing.
Great. I guess, I don't know of anything right now, but it's great to have connected with you, and I think once we have our next, some kind of meeting, I forgot when that one is going to be actually, but I'll learn more and we'll find out how to connect more and work together.
Okay, great.
I'm really psyched that we're connecting about this
Great.
stuff.
We are too. Thank you, as always, for joining. One quick question, and I never quite understood when we were being kind of pulled in and asked to sit on some of those calls and things like that. Where does that group get its, I don't want to say power, but where does it get its sort of charter from? Is it because we know where ours comes from. Ours is, we are a select board, Bristol Select Board sponsored committee. But where do they draw their, I don't know, I'm not really sure what to call it, but.
Yeah, I really don't know what brought them together. I wasn't there in the beginning. I don't know. I think Larry Buck, he's from this area. He was on it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they were just really interested and they got together. I have no idea. They've done a lot of work. They've actually done a fair bit with looking at scoping studies and working with V-Trans and all kinds of things. And I just popped in here and there. I didn't spend a lot of time with them and know where they originated.
Yeah, because now that we've learned so much more about things like grants, it's interesting to think about a countywide organization applying for a grant. Well, I'm not sure the mechanics of how that would actually happen, given that I know in Bristol, to apply for a grant, the select board has to apply, the town has to apply for a grant. We couldn't just go and do it as a committee.
Well, the Regional Planning Commission also applies for grants and things like that. So they can do that. And if they have a bike ped group that needs some things, they can help with a grant for that. The county, Addison County Regional Planning Commission can help with that,
Yep, got it. Okay.
Maddie's great to work with.
Yeah, I think we've had some contact with regional planning for a couple of things. It was earlier on in our sort of life cycle, but that was another group that like we used to be in somewhat of a contact with, and then kind of stopped hearing from them. So let's see. So we'll move on. Does anybody have anything this month for quarterly initiatives? I'd like to get something in front of the select board for August. So please be thinking about that. I know we're going to have to vote on that to get something in front. So I'm going to have to go through the trials and tribulations of getting everybody on the call. But that said, I've had a couple people reach out to me with interest in joining the group. So hopefully we'll be able to more easily facilitate votes on such things via a quorum for next month. Does anybody have anything they want to add in outside of the things that we've discussed previously? I will note that both of those shelters for bus stops are now in place. There's the one that was in front of the or on the side of the Walgreens, and then the other one is now over in the not the co-housing, but in the new housing development over by the fire station. All right, then moving on, grants, obviously that's hand in hand. I've had some notes from the town grant writer that they sent around a little bit ago. I'll go back through and find those in my email and send them to everyone, but there were some grants that were coming up. Just that might jog some ideas for what we want to do. I also know that let me just pull up my email and make sure I'm getting the terminology correct here. The group that's actually working on this. There was a set of recreation grants coming up, recreational trail program grants timeline that was forwarded. And it was sent to a bunch of us, everybody from Meredith at the Parks and Rec department, the hub, as well as people at the rec club, and then also it included obviously people at the town hall. Some of the things that were discussed were about trail access and things like that. I mentioned in the email exchange that there was a group that had been working with landowners to start to open up mountain bike trail access. But I didn't want to step too far out of turn with what I was saying. I didn't want to speak for that group because we're not formally involved with them, and I don't know what the status is, but that kind of piqued some interest from other people in the email chain. I'll just note here, see if the information gets that far in. So the next grant round for that is going to be opening up in early October of this year. There's some information which I'll forward to everybody. And then also some information on what they've done historically since 2008, that this group that draws its funds from the Federal Department of Transportation's Federal Highway Administration, as well as from Vermont's Department of Forests, Parks and Recreation, have done a ton with trail construction over, the last, I don't know, 15 or so years, it looks like. So it looks like there's some type of an infrastructure, or at least a structure overall for us to potentially tap in. We just don't necessarily have anything that's trail ready, that's really oriented towards that. So what I'm going to try to do is drag that gang in from Mountain Bike Bristol, the mob group, who've been doing work out at New Leaf, and see if they're aware of this, because I think that would be a big boon to helping them do what they're trying to do, in addition to what they've been doing with the landowners and the access that they've been trying to open up. Anything else? All right. Well, Betsy, Sally, Jim, as always, thank you very much for joining. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn if nobody else has anything else. Brad, could I get a second motion? A motion, a second? Kevin, with a hand up. Brad, mark it. Call this meeting at 7:46.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah, sure, Tanya.
Sally, for contacting you about the county-wide stuff, is there a website or email if we have questions or anything to put to you?
Let's see. I think Maddie is kind of holding the whole thing.
Okay.
Or Laura Asermely, she still has I'm not really sure, but you can certainly have my email. I can give you that here.
Is it still Sally B NVT?
Yeah.
Okay,
At
great.
gmail.com.
Yeah, I can forward that to the group.
That's great.
Yeah, Sally, I'll note you sent me something back in April of 2023 on the on some of the subjects that we've covered here. So
Okay, great.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt there.
yeah,
No,
no worries.
that's great. That's
I'll-
great. I don't know how to get in touch with you either. I probably.
Yeah, I'll forward that and copy. Actually, I'll copy the
Okay.
group with you on it, Sally. So,
Okay, that's great. I appreciate
right.
that.
no
Thanks.
worries. Thank you. All right, gang, with
And
that,
I'd love to pop in on meetings, anytime. So,
we're here
be
every
nice to
fourth
keep up.
Thursday. Yeah,
okay,
we
great.
would love to have you. So,
Okay, great. Thanks.
all right, everyone. Good seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is it always the same link?
Yes, it's always the same link. Always the fourth Thursday of every month. And Betsy, I'll look and see. It should be on the town website. It should be easily accessible. So I'll check and make sure.
If it is, I don't know what to click on to get to it. I mean, I did find a list of documents that you've put out over a couple of years.
Yeah, I'll check.
I mean, I have like zero computer skills, so don't assume that what I'm saying is accurate here.
Got it. Okay.
But you could, if you do find it on there, you could just give me a hint where to find it.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking right now and trying to see it. It is where they post the agendas down below, where it's where there's a list of agendas and you can click on that. The agenda always has the link to it, but I'll see if the town administrator can put the actual link to the Zoom meeting up at the top where it says fourth Thursday of every month.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay.
Because the thing is, if you're new to the group, you wouldn't know to look on agenda lists for it.
Yep. I'll pass that feedback on.
All right,
Thanks,
have a good
everyone.